Sleep. A time of rest and rejuvenation. A time of possibility. A time of the thinning of the veil. For some, sleep is a time of visitation by malevolent beings. Beings who prey upon them with a specific intent. Pressing, squeezing, taking. The evenings for some are a time of intense fear and powerlessness. In the days of old, and we mean the very, very old, these creatures of the night were known as the Lillin, children of Lilith, the original Eve. Join us as we explore these old beliefs and the beings who haunted our ancestors in the night. Welcome to The Wandering Crow.
There is a medicine story that tells of Crow's fascination with her own shadow. She kept looking at it, pecking at it until her shadow woke up and became alive. Then Crow's shadow ate her. Crow is dead Crow now. Join us as we attempt to look through the wandering crow's eye to find the gateway to the supernatural, to seek to know the unknowable mysteries of creation. Welcome to the Wandering Crow podcast.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome. You're here with Mandy and Cameron. Say hello, Cameron.
Hola, bienvenue.
So I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. I have unilaterally decided that I would like to call any of our listeners murderers. Do you want to know why?
You're part of the murder.
Yes! Our listeners will be murderers because it's a murder of crows. I like it. I know, I feel like it. That was
If
really
any of
nerdy.
you want to share your murder stories, feel
Don't.
free.
Nope. Not interested in that, thanks. So that should be fun. I've
We
decided.
promise not to go to the police.
I make no promises of any kind. Murderers. And then I wanted to also make sure that we're saying in every episode our email address, because I would love it if we could hear from you guys and hear any stories you wanted to share and hear, I don't know, anything. I just want to hear from you guys and know that you exist, because that would be cool. If you wanted to reach out to us, our email is wanderingcrowpodcast@gmail.com. Again, wanderingcrowpodcast@gmail.com. We'll put that in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to us if you have anything that you wanted to say or share.
And if any of you are interested in any crow paraphernalia, I am working on stuff. It is not quite ready. I felt like it was kind of early in our first few episodes, but I do now have a workshop, so I have started doing stuff.
Yay! And you're going to make a website, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be making a website. We don't have one yet, so no domain, but that's coming soon.
Neat. The other thing I wanted to discuss is I am very aware that our audio is not the best. That is a work in progress. We are neither one of us are sound engineers or sound designers. We are figuring stuff out as we go along. And I am desperately in need, myself personally, of better equipment. Cameron actually has a pretty decent setup. And I
feel like this is with my own sound recording. I can play with the levels of things. I think this is going to turn out a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
At least on my side.
Your side's going to sound spectacular. My side is going to sound awful, and that's okay for now. But we do promise. I am going to work on that. Cameron's already got a pretty sweet setup, and then we are going to try to do more recordings in person with each other. It's just different because our schedules are so weird. And I have so many demands. Like, we just both have so many demands. It's just hard to meet at the same place, because the driving there is precious time that I feel like neither one of us has that much of. But we're going to figure it out. We're going to get there.
We are closer now, so that'll help. But
yes, we are definitely not 2 hours away from each other anymore, so that's good. So, all right. So, where should we start? This actually, I want to say this episode was Cameron's idea. He wanted to talk about the Lillin, and I did not know anything about the Lillin. And I think
you've come away with this knowing more than I do. I just know that they're really cool desert spirits that haunt the night, and they were basically they were like the olden day jinn. You could blame them for basically anything.
Pretty much anything. And they were blamed for that. What I feel like this episode is exactly the reason why I wanted to do a podcast. I feel like I learned so much about old school Judaism, which is the basis of Christianity. I don't know. I feel like most people should know that. I really hope most people know that. You know, all of the Old Testament stuff in the Christian Bible is all from the Torah. It's all old Hebrew ideology. I don't know if it's well, I guess it's Hebrew. Maybe no, because Hebrew is a language, right? But it's Judaic. I mean, so
Hebrew text. It's a cultural definition of things.
Mm-hmm. And it was really cool to. I'll be honest. I actually didn't do any research on the Lillin themselves very much. I did a ton of research on their progenitor and where they came from, and that was really neat for me. So Cameron, I hope, has covered the demons themselves, and I have covered where they come from. So, Cameron, did you want to start with their progenitor and work our way through?
With Lilith?
Yeah. How do you want to start this?
Well, so I know Lilith, she was created as an equal to Adam. They were made both from the soil. They were both created from the ground as basically a species of man. She did not want to lay with Adam. She refused, and so they could not procreate. And God tried to smite her, and she spoke God's name and then sprouted wings and flew away. And then God basically cursed her, and she could only lay with demons, and her children would be killed by like the mass of like 100 million a day. And they basically became the new form of what the Lilu are, the Lilim.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were like the old school jinn. You would see them, they were basically another form of humanity, but tainted. And with, divine ability in that they were half demon.
There's so much, I'm actually shocked that you just know that offhand. I knew none of that stuff before we started this episode. And you were correct. So, where I started was with my wonderful book, The Encyclopedia of Spirits, and it was woefully, it told me a lot, but nothing, it didn't feel, I don't know, I came away a little bit confused. So, Lilith, according to my wonderful book, has a very long entry. She's associated with the screech owl. She's considered a beautiful maiden, dark maid, flame of the revolving sword, maid of desolation, night demon, hand of Inanna, the night witch, the howler. In Sumerian, she's also known as the Lilithu. In Yiddish, she might be known as the Lilith. And her origin is, according to this book, Sumerian.
Mm-hmm.
And she has an extensive history that goes back not just 2,000 years, Jesus is 2,000 years. Lilith goes thousands of years beyond that. There's just so much about her. So most of us know the story of creation, right? and I'm a teensy bit fuzzy on it, but on the first day, God said, "Let there be light," right? Like it was all chaos. Well, did you know that God actually he was one of 7? Our God was one of 7. Did you know that, Cameron?
Our God?
Yeah. Yahweh, our God, was one of 7.
You mean the Christian God?
Yeah. Yeah, not my God, but the God that we grew up with. Let's say that. He was one of 7.
Well, so I did not. To answer your question, no, I had no idea. I did not know that.
Yeah, and so Yahweh, which is one possible name, but not the true name of the Christian God, was one of 7 brothers who existed in a universe that was completely chaos. And they tried to create creatures out of the chaos. And the creatures were these hideous deformities that were impossible for men to understand. And they transcended dimensions. And it was this big mess. And anytime Yahweh would try to create something, one of his 6 brothers would inevitably destroy it, because they are basically beings of chaos too. And there was a big fight, and so Yahweh decided to escape. Like, he was basically exiled to the far reaches of the universe, like a deep, dark, unexplored corner of the chaotic universe. And from there, he created a barrier of the heavens. So he created kind of a safe space where these other chaos creatures couldn't enter. His brothers could not come in. And as he created the heavens, he first created angels. Angels were his first creation, and Samael was his very first angel. And he created a whole host of different types of angels and things. And then eventually he created the world. And on the world, he created the animals, and he created the mountains and the trees and the stones. And he created all of these things until finally he created man. And of all of the creatures he created, actually, it turns out, according to several of the books that I read, the creatures that created on Earth all have free will. Animals have free will. Plants have free will. And he created the Garden of Eden to contain all of these plants and all of these animals. But the walls, according to one of the stories, the walls of the Garden of Eden started to break down because the trees and the plants and the grasses were escaping through the stone of the walls. It's actually really interesting stuff. So God created man. God created Adam. And Adam spent some time observing the other creatures of the world and saw that they all had mates, and asked God, "Where is my mate? I feel very alone. I'd like to have a mate, please." So God, loving Adam as much as he did, created a woman. And he created woman in the same way that he created Adam. And he created her from the dirt, just like you were saying. Adam was made from the dirt, and Lilith was also made from the dirt, and she was this spectacular creature. And when she awoke, she had a mind of her own, and she had opinions about things. And according to one of the books I read, Adam kind of didn't like that. That was not what he expected. He expected a woman who would do his bidding.
Excuse me, God, this one's defective.
Yeah, that's pretty much. So so they're trying to get along, and their edict from God was now prosper and multiply, right? That was what God told them to do. Let me see okay. So according to one of the books I read, and this one tries to condense many different sources and many different accounts from several different books into one shorthand kind of notation. And according to this book is called Lilith, the Mother of All Dark Creatures, by E.R. Vernor. The trouble started when she refused to lie under him during sex. Adam and Lilith never found peace together, for when he wished to lie with her, she took offense at the recumbent posture he demanded. "Why must I lie beneath you?" she asked. "I also was made from dust, and am therefore your equal." Because Adam tried to compel her obedience by force, so he didn't like that she was questioning that, and he tried to force her. Lilith, in a rage, uttered the magic name of God, which Adam apparently didn't even know this, but Lilith somehow knew the secret celestial name of God, not Yahweh, but the secret name of God. And in a rage, she uttered the magic name of God, and she rose into the air and left him. And she actually ascended into the heavens and laid her grievance with Adam at God's feet. Said, "What is this? I am his equal." And God said, "You have to go back. You have to go back. I've created you for this." And he was really pissed at her. Like, this is not, like, you're supposed to be obedient. You're supposed to obey me. And I told you to multiply. So go back and make it work with Adam. And she said, "Hell no." And she left. And she went to a place by the Red Sea in a cave and decided to create her own life. And Adam was pretty upset about that and said, "God, I need you to make me another one." So on one of the accountings, God made Adam another wife from the dirt. And Adam was horrified when he saw what she looked like and how she was made. And it freaked him out. And he said, "I don't want that one." So God sent the other woman off into the desert to just die. Like, God was really callous. And eventually God said, "Okay, I've got the solution. You want a wife who's going to be your helpmate and who's going to be obedient to you. Go to sleep." So he made Adam go to sleep, and he took the rib from Adam and then formed Eve around Adam's rib. So she was, and we were saying this before you came on the air, but Cameron, you said she's an extension of Adam. She's a part of Adam. And therefore is subservient to him and must be obedient to him. And Eve was those things. Lilith was curious about how things were going with Adam and started to check it out and was horrified by this situation. In some accounts, not all accounts, but she was horrified to this weak creature, this weak subservient creature who didn't question things and just took orders from Adam, and couldn't believe that Eve was expected to be the mother of mankind. She was a little upset about that. Like, that's what I'm here for. That's my job. I'm supposed to be the mother of mankind. I am worthy. And became very angry. And she decided from that day that she would, this is according to one account, she would kill all of the children of Adam and Eve. And she just felt like they would all be weak because the woman herself was weak and subservient. In some other accounts, Lilith is the one who masterminded the fall, Adam and Eve's fall from grace, when they ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge. What's pointed out in also multiple different texts that I was reading, Eve ate from the tree of knowledge. Eve is a sinner. Adam is a sinner. They partook in the original sin. Lilith herself, even though she was the architect of that, has not been touched by sin. Not technically, because she never ate from the tree of knowledge. She doesn't actually know what's right and what's wrong. That's what the tree of knowledge bestowed upon Adam and Eve, according to some of these texts. So Lilith alone is free from sin. And it's said that in one of the texts I read, Lilith actually did eat from the tree of life, which bestowed upon her immortality. So she lived for thousands of years, and she formed these relationships with the fallen angel. Samael, the first angel of God, was jealous of Adam and started to rebel against God. Like, these human beings are not more precious than us. Adam, how can you love him more than you love us? And they tried to unite to try to make God understand their feelings about this, and God became angry because they were disobedient and sent them to hell. And Samael was able to get out of hell, and he and Lilith formed a relationship, and they had children, and it's kind of crazy. The book actually, one of the books that I read, and I'll tell you the source, I'll tell you what it's called, is called Lilith, an Apocrypha, and it is a fictional account. It's a fictionalized account that pulls together all of these sources. And I read it all the way through, and some of it is opinion, and some of it is fiction, kind of putting words and dialogue together. But it uses a collection of accounts from various different books in order to create this story of the life of Lilith. And it makes her seem relatable. She didn't want to be subservient. She wanted to have rights. She didn't want to have to blindly just follow Adam. She wanted to be his equal, and he couldn't have that. He was threatened by that. And so for that, she was cast away and she was punished. And she was vilified. She was seen as this demon creature when all she really wanted, she would have been a partner with Adam, but she wanted him to see her as an equal, and he couldn't have that. And that made me feel kind of bad for her. But then, you know, she was after revenge and decided, I'm not going to kill all of Adam and Eve's kids. And she started to create her children and tell them, you also, I want you to bedevil the children of men. I want you to tempt them. I want you to sway them away from God, because she was really angry at God for creating this situation, for creating another Eve, for casting aside her, and for not loving her when he was just as much her creation, or she was just as much his creation as Adam was. And he didn't love her as much as he loved Adam, according to her. And so she created all of these demons, like she gave birth to them and sent them to torment men. And God, one of the craziest things that I learned when I was going through all of my reading, God had a wife.
Really?
Yahweh had a wife, yeah. And at one point, in some of the accounts, Lilith eventually becomes God's consort and mistress, in spite of it. At one point, and I want to say it was Metatron. Matronit is one of the names that she's given. He sent Matronit away to destroy the temple in Jerusalem and scatter the tribes of men. This is after the Tower of Babel was destroyed. And it was during this time that apparently Lilith and God became intimate with each other. And according to one of these, I don't know if there's any basis of this in any of the old stories, but according to this one, Jesus was actually the child of Yahweh and Lilith, hidden away in the womb of a virgin, so Matronit couldn't kill him. And that, I don't even know what to make of that. Like, that's crazy to me. But Lilith is attributed with also being the Queen of Sheba, who had a relationship with Solomon and destroyed Solomon. Solomon was given a magical ring to control the Lilin, and he used the Lilin to help build his amazing castle. And castle's not the right, his palace. Create his palace and build his temples. He actually enslaved the Lilin with this ring that was meant to ward against her and her, well, not her, I guess she actually didn't have any effect on her, but it did have an effect on her children. And she was the Queen of Sheba. And she ultimately ends up destroying Solomon after seducing him. He falls in love with her. It's just, there's just so much stuff. And I feel like I gave you a really small Cliff's Note version in 20 minutes of all of the stuff that goes on. But it was, I don't know. What do you think about all of this, Cameron?
It's pretty crazy. I mean, so in essence, the way they wrote it is their God himself is a God of chaos and is as much flawed as the rest of us.
Yes, exactly. That was hard for me because I think I have a projection of what Christians are like, which I know is not true of all Christians, but at least when I was in church, God was perfect. God was infallible. God had a master plan. And even when bad shit happened to good people, it was because it was part of some kind of master plan. But in the beginning of this religion, the very, very beginning of this God's reign over humanity, he was an imperfect creature, much like any other human being. Like he was so human. I mean, in some respects, it reminded me a lot of the creation story of the Nordics, of the Norse, with the great realm of chaos and Gnunganep and the brothers who slay one of their own. And I'm a little bit fuzzy on the details, but one of the brothers died, and they used the parts of his body to create the world with. And like, I had no idea that was the case, because I've always been told Christianity, Judaism, and the Muslim faith are all monotheistic religions. But at least in the very, very beginning, there was quite a bit of, it was a little bit loosey-goosey. Like, yes, Yahweh was the ultimate supreme God, but Yahweh had brothers. Yahweh had many children. Yahweh had a wife. You know, like, and then we have the angels, who all have powers, which are pretty incredible. And they have the ability to fight and do things, and they're like basically demigods. And it was amazing for me to read all of this stuff and uncover this whole smorgasbord of details about the God that I grew up with that I had no idea about. I feel weird. Like, I had already reached a place where I decided I didn't like Christianity. And I thought it was because of the modern control behaviors that I see Christians employ against other people. And again, this is not all Christians. I thought it was the people in the Christian church now. But that the God, in my mind, was this sort of not human creature who is unknowable and untouchable and is impossible for us to comprehend with our human minds. But at least in the old days, that's not what their thoughts of God was at all. I feel like, I don't know, I feel like I'm ranting a little bit, but it really has changed, and I'm still, I guess, kind of integrating some of this information into like my worldview. But even back then, especially when I think about what happened to Lilith, you know, there's some evidence to suggest she may have been a very powerful goddess who was worshipped by a tribe of people before the Sumerians. And then after the Sumerians came, and we have this idea of a single monotheistic God, and patriarchy really started to take over, like the idea that men are superior to women and not just superior like in quality, but like have power over women. That is the quote unquote natural order of things. That is when she became vilified. That is when she was sort of placed in this story. Yes, there was this woman, and she wanted to be Adam's equal. And it's interesting to me that detail made it in to all of the old texts that talked about her, and it kind of integrated her into the original Judeo belief system. But yeah, so I really felt for her in the beginning when I was first learning. But then, you know, she is a being who, and again, if you think about it in terms of, okay, she never had the fruit, the forbidden fruit.
She doesn't know what's good and bad.
She doesn't know what's good and bad. She was basically just a child having a temper tantrum, trying to get her dad's attention. And in that respect, I can feel bad for her too. But the chaos that she's unleashed as a child of a god that's essentially a god of chaos on humanity, or at least she has been blamed on her. I don't know that you can excuse that or forgive that. Like, I'm not prepared to see her as this benevolent creature.
I mean, she was also the concubine of, so she's kind of acknowledged as being close to being equal.
And having incredible power of her own. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I was reading was Lilith has had quite a lifespan. So she's been around for longer than 2,000 years. We know that for sure. She existed before the birth of Jesus Christ in a lot of the writings. She existed in the Sumerian culture. She maybe existed before the Sumerian culture as another goddess. So she's an example of, and they talk about syncretism in a lot of the works that I read. And we've heard syncretism before. We talked about the Bawan Samedi and how he was an Orisha god who was syncretized when slaves were brought over to Haiti into the Americas, and they had the mixing of religions, right? So he kind of changed some of who he was and became this sort of, got a makeover basically, and has like this new identity. And we talked about Maman Brigitte, and I still want to try that episode. Cameron's a little bit not so sure, but Maman Brigitte, if you look back across time, has existed for thousands of years as other beings as well. And here we have Lilith. And it's wild to me to think about, if this is truly a single entity, this is a very powerful entity who has managed to persist in the minds of human beings for thousands and thousands of years. And across time, she's had different
roles. She's a different,
different roles. She's been seen different ways. So in the beginning, she's this powerful almighty goddess who gets praise and worship and all this stuff. And then as the attitudes of human beings change, and men are not okay with goddesses, and men need to be in charge, things change. And then we have a male god, and the male god is ultimately in control. And we have men who want subservient wives, and Lilith becomes not just cast out, but she's seen as this demon. She is seen as the mother of all demons, the Lilin, the Shedem, and ultimately the Jinn. In some texts, she's the mother of the Jinn as well. And throughout time, in the 1600s, people started to see her a little bit differently. There were attempts to look into the old texts, and they saw these old accounts of how Lilith was this powerful creature, how Lilith was Adam tried to force himself on her and force her to be subservient to him. And she was this powerful woman creature. So they started to see her a little bit differently and a little bit more sympathetically. So Lilin started to get this facelift. She wasn't this ugly demon hag anymore. She was this beautiful seductress, this powerful powerhouse woman, still not to be trifled with.
I would stop right there. Originally, she kind of was. So there is the Ardat Lily, is the demon that visits men at night, and the Idlu Lily is the male counterpart of that. Later became the succubus and incubus.
Yeah, I saw that. And Ardat is supposed to be, the translation is like the handmaid, or like right hand. So there is. And
Idlu is a grown man. Searches for women of marriageable age and then impregnates them at night.
There is a possibility that Ardat and the Lilu are actually not versions of Lilith, but are henchmen of Lilith.
They predate.
Possibly servants of Lilith.
This is Mesopotamia, so they predate her. So these powerful beings, I mean, if you want to say that they're possibly related, Baron Samedi and Brigitte.
Wait, what do you mean, Baron Samedi? And like, you mean they're related to the Ardat and the Lilu?
Mm-hmm. And Idlu and Ardat. So Ardat would be the woman figure, this powerful woman figure that lurks in the shadows, godlike being. And the Idlu is the male counterpart to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I got
also
that.
Dark. Prevails in times of turmoil. It has a resemblance. These are night terror creatures.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if you want to say that the Jewish folklore would be like, then yes, maybe they would be henchmen. But I think that this predates Lilith.
Yes, I hear that you're saying that. I did see that, but I thought that Lilith also existed in Mesopotamia. And I'm trying to find my notes to back that up, but I can't find it. She shows up in the Dead Sea Scrolls. She shows up in the Book of Isaiah, the Alphabet of Ben Sirah, all these texts that I never ever knew about. Yeah, I can't find it now. In ancient Babylonian texts, she's the prostitute of the goddess Ishtar. And here it is. They talk about the Lilith and the Akkadian Ar.Lili and the Assyrian Labartu were demon-like figures like Lilith, bringers of disease and uncleanliness. Ardat is derived from the word Ardatu, which is another name for prostitutes, and also for young, unmarried women, meaning maiden. So can we talk about that for a second? Ardatu means prostitute and virgin. Isn't that the weirdest shit you've ever heard?
Well, I think it means promiscuous, unmarried women. Because you wouldn't just call an unmarried woman that.
Just says young, unmarried women. It doesn't say promiscuous. It says young, unmarried women, meaning maiden. I don't know. Maybe. That would make it make more sense for me. But, yeah. And yeah, they talk about the Lamash too, which was a similar related Mesopotamian demon that helped contribute to the Lilith mythology. She was thought to harm children and women during childbirth. This is another one that has bird features. Anyway, so
I found very interesting is that it's got ties to birds of prey once again.
Oh. And what interests you about that?
Well, Morrigan. The Morrigan has the crows.
Oh.
Frequently crows, sometimes owls.
Carrion birds. Yes, owls. I saw that. Which explains why people are so afraid of owls. Because the owl is associated with this demon. Which I hadn't really heard that before. I knew that there were people who considered owls to be harbingers of doom and to be... Some people don't trust owls. They see them as a bad omen, but I've never felt that way, and I didn't understand where that came from.
Bad omen, maybe. They're like, they're the watchers. They're there. They just happen to be there when bad things are... It's not like they cause it. It's just maybe bad omen is the right word.
Yeah, so Lilith... the things... here's what I was trying to get to, and now I remember. The thing is, Lilith is changing again. She's getting another little bit of a facelift. Yeah, Mesopotamia. The Mesopotamian night demon. Sorry, I'm like jumping. This is not the point I wanted to make, but I just found it. The Mesopotamian night demon, known as Lilith, dates back to 3000 BCE.
I didn't know that.
Back then, she was simply known as the wind spirit, known as Lilith. These are beings of destruction in nature that brought disease, illness, and even death. These spirits caused nightmares to the unfortunate souls of one of the earliest civilizations of humanity. So 3000 BCE, Lilith is 5,000 years old at least that we know of. And she's associated, like her children are, she's been called everything, Lilith herself has been called everything from a dark goddess, a succubus, a vampire, and also a powerful archetypal figure for modern women to resist being held subservient. Lilith's children are the succubus, the incubi. They are the demons that harm young pregnant mothers and harm unborn children and newly born children. They apparently they will harvest, quote unquote, seed from men and women in order to help swell their ranks and create more children. And I can't find what the note that I wanted to make is, as Lilith's identity has changed and she's becoming a little bit more humanized and women's liberation has increased and women are no longer vilified simply because they want to be equals, Lilith has actually been held up as kind of a symbol for that. So Sarah McLachlan's Lilith Fair, which I know I took a note about, and I can't find that note, is named after Lilith. Named after the strength.
She made a Lilith Fair?
Lilith Fair. This is a thing that happened God damn it. I can't find the note. But I definitely took a note about this.
I don't doubt it. But that's pretty wild.
Well, Lilith Fair. And then there was another, there was a group of Jewish women who created in the 80s a magazine. And I can't find that note either. I'm so annoyed. But
that was in a TV show at some point. Yeah, I heard about that.
They created a magazine, and it was The Women of Lilith or something like that, or The Journal of Lilith was the name of that. And it was meant to be this symbol of powerful women taking control of things. I did a lot of reading in a very short period of time. So everything's a little bit scattered. Okay, so I found the one thing. So Lilith and modern feminism. When the singer Sarah McLachlan founded an all-female touring music festival in 1997 and named the event Lilith Fair, the most widely asked question was, who is Lilith? And according to Sarah McLachlan, the story of Lilith is, quote, Adam asked God to send him a mate, a partner like the other creatures had. God obliged by making Lilith and sending her to Adam. At first he was pleased, but then she opened her mouth, showing that she had a mind of her own. He wanted her to lie beneath him, and she promptly refused, saying that they were equal, and she would not be subservient to him. Adam flew into a tantrum, so Lilith took off to calmer territory. So that was her decision to name her fair, and it was an all-female touring music festival. She called it the Lilith Fair in the 90s. And Lilith has shown up in just a ton. She's another one, just like the bear and Samadhi, who is showing up all over popular culture. So Crowley had some ideas about Lilith. And Cameron, don't you know something about that? I actually don't know Crowley's deal with Lilith.
I would think that it was something distant because one of his famous stories is that he was into Horus worship. Mm-hmm. So he actually took one of his girlfriends at the time into this exclusive place in the pyramid where people aren't allowed to go. And his wife or his girlfriend or whatever became possessed and told him about the emerald tablets. And so he listened to Horus and tried to encourage him to keep possessing his girlfriend. So, I mean, I don't think he would have been very big into Lilith.
No,
if he is, that's surprising.
He was, and my notes are scattered, but he was very into Lilith, and actually he had a daughter who lived to be 2 years old, and she had a very long name, this daughter, but one of the names that he gave her was Lilith, named after this old Lilith.
That's surprising.
In the 19...
He didn't...
Huh?
He didn't live like somebody who would have an attachment to Lilith.
Crowley is an interesting dude. In the 1950s...
So megalomaniac.
Yes. Well, he was obsessed with power, right? And who is more powerful than Lilith? She defied God.
Okay, but that's not why you...
I don't know.
That's not why you would do that.
I don't know why you would do it. Certain things.
Misguided.
Yeah.
Misguided.
In the 1950s, C.S. Lewis invoked Lilith, using Lilith in the Chronicles of Narnia. The White Witch, the daughter of Lilith, is determined to kill the sons of Adam and the daughters of Eve. Lilith was the name of the vampire's hit woman in the movie called Jake West, 1998. Oh, I'm sorry. In the Jake West 1998 movie, Razorblade Smile. And she showed up as like a demon in Supernatural. She's in Marvel Comics Army fighting Night Stalkers in the 1990s. She shows up in Neil Gaiman's long-running comic book series, The Sandman. Lilith is mentioned as Adam's first wife. One of her children is the consort of Lucifer Morningstar. And Lilith shows up as the progenitor as a vampire made in God's image on the HBO show True Blood. I didn't realize that Lilith shows up in True Blood. So she's another one who has a really strong grip on the minds of humanity and has just this really incredible longevity. So anyway, so I think I'm done talking about Lilith. But so the deal is, so Lilith manipulated the situation and manipulated Eve with the help of Samael, who took the form of a serpent, into getting her to eat this apple from the tree of knowledge, and they commit the first original sin. And they were banned from the Garden of Eden, and Eve was condemned to always have painful childbirth, and Adam was condemned to have to toil all the days of his life in order to be able to survive. Like, life would no longer be easy for any of them. Lilith disappeared back into her cave on the Red Sea and had some children with Samael before he was castrated for something that he had done to God. God eventually castrates Samael after several thousand years. And she and Samael visit Adam and Eve separately in dreams in the night. And they're, in my mind, the original succubi and incubi. And they take what they need from Adam and Eve to create children. And in some accounts, Cain, so we know the first two children of the children of Adam and Eve are Cain and Abel, right? The first murder was the murder that Cain commit against Abel out of jealousy. By some accounts, Cain is actually Lilith's child. Cain is Lilith's son. And then in other accounts, Lilin's first daughter, the child of Lilith and Samael, her name is Awan, is the wife of Cain. Lilith sends Awan to them, to Adam and Eve and Cain, and Awan becomes Cain's wife. And she produces, it's said that in some texts she produces hundreds of thousands of children a day with various demons and fallen angels. Among Samael is one of them. And apparently she made a deal where in order to protect her first child and protect some of her children, like to put a limit on how many of her children could be killed, she said, if you have an amulet that has my name or the names of these three angels on it, then I will spare those children. But Lilin was going to murder all the other children of Eve that she could find. Yeah, and that's talked about all over the place. Lots of different sources. But so then that's where we get the Lilin from. The Lilin are the children of Lilith. I'd like to hear what you know about the Lilin, Cameron.
So this sums it up pretty good. Let's see. Lilith is said to want to mount Adam, implying she sexually violated him. Mm-hmm. Other stories portray Lilith as a demoness who kills children and takes advantage of men while they are sleeping. Lilith is also known as the mother of demons. She has superhuman strength, endurance, and durability, as well as the ability to conjure visions and create bolts of mystic energy. She kills via invisible force, she can teleport, and perform other magical feats. Mostly what I know of her is like the demon of the desert.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
Being in Arizona, so it's basically like shadow people.
Oh.
But it's a female shadow person that sort of comes in with the wind. So imagine like black smoke flowing through the desert. And people have said that they've seen it in Arizona.
I have a story like that.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it comes to you in your dreams too. Mm-hmm. So if you have a dream about black smoke and you feel like you're threatened, it might be a Lilith. And being in the desert, that's very pertinent to know.
Mm-hmm.
So I figured it out through that, because I had a dream about black smoke.
Oh.
And it spared me after holding a knife to my throat.
Good Lord. When was this?
Back in high school.
Dang.
Shortly before I had the dream about the Morgan. They didn't look the same, but the black smoke spared me, and I had a dream about waking up outside. And of course you would. And it had this horrible sound, almost like a motorcycle revving as it approached. Just really loud, and it had that vibration. And it zipped across the yard and then hovered right over me, and from the smoke materialized this hand holding a knife, and it went right to my throat, and then it kind of stopped, and it backed up, and I woke up.
Dang.
It was like 2 or 3 months later, I had the dream about the Morgan. So after looking up what the black smoke could have been, I found the demon of the desert, the Lillin. And so they're said to approach men in their sleep, and they usually will result in death. I don't know too much after that. You have to respect the desert when you're out there. She's essentially a desert spirit. And so if you don't respect the desert, that's usually when you see them. And that's when me and Lionel were fucking around in the desert all the time. But yeah, that's a majority of what I know. It's just my firsthand account, and then also people saying that they've seen them. And when they go hunting, they'll have it feels like they're being watched in their own homes. They close their blinds because every once in a while they'll see a pair of eyes.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And there's stories about fake people of Arizona. I suspect that is also a form of Lilith, where you'll see normal-looking guy, but they don't have normal responses.
Mm-hmm.
And you approach them, and then they're no longer there. Did you find anything more?
I have a story. Do you remember when we did Haunted Arizona? I said I found some really good stories that are from the natives of Arizona. I found some Apache stories and some Tohono O'odham stories. And one of the stories is about, we'll read it another time because I still am holding fast to the prohibition on native stories outside of winter. But one of the stories, this man was in the desert, and he was not doing anything bad or disrespectful, but he was kind of out in the middle of nowhere following a stream. And
sometimes just being there, and you're unwelcomed, or you didn't pay your respects, is, that's enough.
He witnessed something without the spirits knowing he was there. And he was totally freaked out because he realized he had a really strong sense. If these things figure out I'm watching them, I'm going to die. And they were doing a kind of dance, it was some weird kind of dance they were doing. And he watched these black shadow figures doing this weird dance and had this, on the one hand, felt this sense of wonder that he was seeing such an insane, amazing, weird, mystical thing. On the other hand, felt deep, deep, deep terror. If I'm caught, I will die. I am not supposed to be watching this. And we are definitely going to read that story at a later date during the winter time. But that would fit the description of kind of a demonic desert wind being. I also was thinking about, the jinn. Who are the jinn? Who are shadow people? Lilith.
And that's why I think they're the same.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a regional name for them.
Mm-hmm. What, the jinn or the shadow people?
Both.
Yeah.
So you go to the east coast of America, they're called shadow people. Over here, they're called fake people or Lilin.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Middle East, there's jinn. Mm-hmm. They're just always jinn. Because that's an umbrella term for those kinds of things. In fact, they would say the Lilin and the fake people are just a form of jinn.
Mm-hmm. That's, I've tried to get Talat to tell me a little bit about like his, like, what did he grow up hearing about the jinn as a kid living in a Middle Eastern country, sort of a Middle Eastern country. And he doesn't talk a whole lot about it, to be honest. He doesn't share stories. Like, he's just not a guy who does much with the supernatural. Like, I think for him, it's better to just not even talk about or acknowledge or contemplate. Like, maybe it's there, maybe it's not. It's not for him to speculate on, right? So he doesn't talk a lot about stuff like that. But when I've directly asked him, we maybe talked about this on another episode. I was making a comparison. Like, I wanted to know. I said, do you think it's possible that, the Western English stories about the Fae, about the elves, are very similar to the jinn? Like, could it be that one is the same as the other? It's just cultural names. He said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, a lot of the stuff that we know about elves is they can be good or bad. It kind of depends. If you're disrespectful, they're going to kick your ass. Some of them are malicious and malevolent, and some of them are actually kind of good and will do nice things for you. Some of them, most of the time, they're not visible. They live in kind of this invisible other realm, and they sometimes travel into our realm. And we can occasionally, like humans, sometimes disappear and are said to have gone to the other realm, gone to their world. And it's kind of this dimension that sort of exists, as far as we can tell, side by side with our world. We just can't see it. It's this invisible side reality. And their Earth is very similar to our Earth, but it's like different. And I said a lot of the old beliefs were, if you talked about them, it would call them and it would bring their attention to you, which was never okay. So it was just, generally agreed it wasn't a good idea to talk about them. And you definitely didn't say their name. You had euphemisms for them if you were going to talk about them. Like the shining ones, the lords and ladies. I'm having a little bit of a brain fart. The Fae folk, there's all of these other names that you would give them to kind of avoid directly saying elf or elves or fairy. And when I kind of said all of that, he goes, oh, that's exactly the same. He goes, that's exactly what we say about the jinn. You don't talk about them because they'll notice you. They can be good or they can be bad. They can take offense. And if they take offense, you're in trouble. They exist they have whole cities, according to the mythology, where they live and they have houses and they have families and they're living their own lives in this other world that's sort of parallel to ours. Like the jinn are very similar to what we think of as the elves. And if the jinn and the Lilin and the Shevim are children of Lilith, she's kind of not as powerful as Yahweh, but almost in some ways, in some texts, was seen as powerful enough to be Yahweh, the God's consort or mistress. Like she was more than just a mortal human. She had a lot of power of her own. Could she be the mother of all of these, like the progenitor of all of these things? Like, is there truth to that idea? Are shadow people the children of Lilith? Do they all come from her?
That's kind of what I think is that it's all just different cultural experiences of the same thing, mm-hmm. which in my mind gives it more credence. These are people that have been separated by thousands of years, thousands of miles, and seemingly around the same times, they all had these same stories. Mm-hmm. And even described them the same way.
Yes.
The same taboos.
Mm-hmm.
So I absolutely think that these are the same things.
Here.
And so they're tied to different specific lands. So like desert spirit versus like a forest spirit, which oftentimes forest spirits are a little bit more hostile, if not also whimsical. But if you come across a desert spirit, it's usually because they meant for you to. And that means if you see the desert spirit, it's not a good thing. Whereas a forest spirit, it could be accidental, it seems like. And so in that case, you're more prone to see a benign elf than you are a helpful desert demon.
Why do you think?
Usually that's the way it goes.
Why do you think that?
It's just the way. So my Irish friends told me that there seems to be more fae of the summer house out here, and they are more serious. They don't like to be seen. So if you are seen, if they are seen, it's not a good thing. So he was describing it in like his cultural view, and it kind of made sense. Sort of like seeing a deer versus like a mountain lion.
So in his perspective, the jinn were tamer than elves.
He says there is nastier things in the forest, but almost every time you see something in the desert, it's hostile.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's like there's a wider range of personality in the forest, whereas the desert isn't as nasty. It's just more certain that it's going to be bad.
Because there's less variety of beings?
Yes.
Or at least of
there's
goodness.
More bad things out here. Yeah.
Weird. That's interesting. I wonder if that's his perspective because he didn't grow up in the desert. Like if it's foreign to you, maybe it's more likely to be scarier seeming to you. I don't that's interesting.
Or less accepting.
Yeah, or less accepting.
If you're born from the land, maybe it's nicer to you than it is.
Maybe.
If you're some foreigner.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah. I have a story if you want to hear this. I think you're going to be interested in hearing this story. This is from Reddit, and it's from a post called Tell Me Your Jinn Stories. And the Redditor is Child of Israel Levy. This person says, I'm a revert. I used to be Christian. My friends used to tell me something was in there, but that was before I was Muslim and living with them for some time at their parents' house. I didn't exactly disbelieve them, but I didn't take what they said as being very serious. I just didn't believe, he says what he exactly says is I just didn't take what they said to a high level. So he took what they said with a grain of salt. He says they were telling me that when they would take a shower and come out, they would see a handprint on the mirror bathroom and other similar scary type stuff. He says, well, fast forward. He says, I would like to say within the first 2 months when I started to get up to pray like normal, I think maybe Allah wanted me to see something unseen slowly in order to build up my faith. I kid you not. Imagine that you're seeing something that's not female or male form, just a huge black figure shape going into the bathroom after I did. He goes, the crazy part is I was caught off guard and my heart definitely dropped, letting me know that what I briefly saw was real. And I thought maybe this was a jinn, or this jinn was Muslim. And I was like, it's almost time to pray. And literally it appeared right before it was time to pray. But it was going into the bathroom, almost like it was going to do some business in the bathroom. So that's not maybe the best. I'm guessing English is probably not the first language. But it sounds like he saw a shadow. Like he described a jinn as a shadow person. Like exactly the way that we describe shadow people in the West.
So you think this shadow person was just cohabitating with them?
Maybe. I mean, maybe he was seeing something. Like maybe sometimes I wonder, like if the two worlds, the plane that the jinn and the elves live on is like a parallel universe. Maybe it's possible in that person's instance that there are two homes built right on top of each other, one on each side of the parallel universe. And maybe the bathroom exists in the exact same spot on both sides of the parallel universe, and he was able to see this jinn going about its business just like he was going about his business. I don't know. Here's another jinn story. Oh, go ahead.
Do you think the jinn tell stories about us? Is there a podcast going on right now?
Maybe they do.
About the human folk?
Isn't that crazy to think about sometimes? Maybe we are someone else's nightmare. Maybe, I don't know, man. It's weird to think about. Okay, so this person is called Siege Player 7 and says they have two stories. One, when I was a kid, I used to sleep in the same room with my younger brother and sister. But on this night, my brother was sleeping in my parents' room, so it was just me and my sister. The light was off. I was reading a book with a blanket over my head and a flashlight. Then I heard a voice, couldn't tell if it was male or female, telling me in Arabic, perfect Arabic accent, to switch off the light. I can understand Arabic, but speaking fluently is a problem. My sister cannot speak Arabic at all, let alone the accent, so I was already scared regarding what the hell just happened. I called out to my sister, but she was fast asleep. I switched on the overhead light, and she was definitely asleep. I know the look on her face when she's definitely sleeping. Says I just went under my blanket, scared, and was praying. I was spooked for a few days, till eventually I forgot. So the second incident happened about a year ago. My door was closed, and I heard, quote-unquote, my knock on the door. As in, all the members of our family each have our own unique knock so that we can quickly hide stuff my dad wouldn't like to see us doing. Like snacks, Pepsi, chess, etc. Why wouldn't your dad like chess? Anyway, so I heard someone do my knock on the door, which no one ever does. Never. I was puzzled. I said, enter. 10 seconds went by. No one came in. I opened the door. No one was there. Only people in the house at that time were me, my brother, and my mom. My brother's room is right above mine, and it couldn't have been my brother because I would have heard him leave his room, come down, run up the stairs, then hurry back to his own room within those 10 seconds. I would have heard his door opening and all the thuds like you would hear on an elephant walking past you. My mom was sleeping for certain, and I could tell from her face she wasn't faking it. That's his account of the jinn. These are all pretty benign. Like, I don't know. I guess it's different if you're living it.
Well, what was it? Alfred Hitchcock says terror isn't a jump scare. It's hearing a baby cry when you're in a house by yourself. It's hearing a knock on the door when there's nothing there. So maybe it was literally, like you said, being there and hearing the knock and knowing nobody's there.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, it sounds like he was a kid.
Yeah, I think this person was probably pretty young at the time.
I do have something else here. It's called a bestiarum. The Lillin, Mesopotamian mythology. In the mythology and demonology of ancient Mesopotamia, Lillin were a kind of evil spirit that hunted at night, attacking human men. How exactly they came into existence is not known. But we do know that they supposedly came from the desert. Somewhere deep in the unexplored desert is a place where the Lillin came from, and from where they set out at night to hunt for men. Apparently, according to the Targum Sheni book, King Solomon had summoned a group of Lillin to dance before him. This is not a sign that the king was evil, but rather a display of power, in the sense that his wisdom and status were so high that even evil desert monsters obeyed him out of respect. Though some have some similarities to the Shadim from ancient Jewish tradition, those are separate entities. Also in Akkad and Sumer, there were regional variants of Lillin, which were called the Lilu and Lili, respectively. According to some scholars, the Akkadian word may have been derived from the name of the nocturnal bird, which may imply that the demon had a bird-like appearance. And so that's a quick excerpt from the Mesopotamian Lilu and Lili. Basically, they're saying they're born of the desert, that they aren't the ancient children of some greater being, that they just were born of the desert, that they are desert spirits.
Wait, so that they are not the children of an ancient being? That they're actually just, they're spirits of the land?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, what it comes down to is humans have ascribed belief and behaviors and what is it called? It's called anthropomorphication, where you take like an animal.
You talk about a cat smiling.
Yes, exactly, and you give it human characteristics. But what if these are just spirit creatures and we've given them all of this history and all of it is just human speculation? Like, how do we know anything? That's actually really interesting to think about. Like, maybe they're just part of some other ecosystem, like some other spirit ecosystem, and we just don't know that. We've just sort of decided they're evil.
Think about this too. So Lilith was born of the earth, of the soil, of the sand, the desert. These things were born of the desert. So there's still parallels.
Right. Well, so instead of her being their mother, maybe she's just one of them.
She created them. Or maybe she created them the same way she was created, without laying.
That could totally be.
Or, like you said, maybe she's just one of many.
She's one of many, and she's just one of the best known.
Mm-hmm.
So and the Shedem, I think we briefly talked about the Shedem a little bit. It's this Judaic idea, and it's not exactly, someone says it's not exactly like canon in Jewish mythology, but that it does exist in a lot of older scripts. They're mentioned. From the Babylonian Talmud, Shagiga 16a on Shedem and others, the sages taught 6 statements were said with regard to demons, and in parentheses, Shedem. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels, and in 3 ways, they are like humans. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels. They have wings like ministering angels, and they fly from one end of the world to the other. Again, that bird-like kind of characteristic. So they fly from one end of the world to the other like ministering angels, and they know what will be in the future like ministering angels. Should it enter your mind that they know this? Not even the angels are privy to the future. Rather, they hear from behind the curtain when God reveals something of the future, like ministering angels. And in 3 ways, they are similar to humans. They eat and drink like humans. They multiply like humans, and they die like humans. 6 statements were said with regard to humans. In 3 ways, they are like ministering angels, and in 3 ways, they are like animals. The 3 ways they are like ministering angels is they have intelligence like ministering angels, and they walk upright like ministering angels, and they speak in the holy tongue like ministering angels. And then this person, so this is also from Reddit, it's Zev Ben Zvi. For what it's worth, this person says, it seems to me that the last category, the traits that humans share with angels, are things that demons lack. To me, what I took from...
Such as a knowledge of good and evil.
Well, yeah. And
that inhuman distinction of we shouldn't do this thing.
Mm-hmm. It sort of seems to me like there is a comparison between, like, it's kind of like humans and Shedem are just 2 sides of a similar coin. They're beings who both could be compared to angels, but are also different. Yeah, I actually find that passage to be kind of interesting. The Shedim, they eat and drink like humans. They multiply like humans. They die like humans. And that sounds a lot like what I have gathered from talking to Talat about the jinn. They are very human-like in some ways. And if you think about the characteristics of Lilith, this creature known as Lilith, who was created the same way that Adam was, she still possessed these strange powers that Adam did not. And she had immortality that Adam did not. She knew the true name of God, and Adam did not. And she was able to ascend to heaven directly to have conversations with God. It's just kind of interesting to think about. This is just a different being. It's just interesting. Okay, this one brings up an interesting point. Here's a story, and it's from an account that was deleted. It comes from a Reddit thread that asks people who experience ghost/demonic encounters, what's your story? And here's this one. Again, the account was deleted. When I was pregnant with my second child, I would have insanely vivid dreams, usually just random things. But one night, I dreamed about what I'd come to know as, quote unquote, the Hat Man. I will give a little bit of background for context in the dream. My friend Anna recently moved to a different home, and her friend Charlotte moved into the old one. Me and Charlotte were only acquaintances, but since Anna had lived in the home, I was very familiar with it. In my dream, I was walking up to the house with my husband and my oldest daughter. I was coming to babysit for Charlotte. It was super foggy and dark with no other houses around it, nothing but a man sitting outside of the fence. He had his back turned to us, just staring at the house as he sat in a wheelchair. The feeling I had was extremely uneasy, and something about the man was just off. As we approached, I got the sense that this man wanted to get into the house but couldn't. He appeared to be middle-aged. Nothing stood out beside the wheelchair and his hat. It was a hat you'd see in a show like Peaky Blinders. The closer I got, the more I somehow knew that this was not a good, quote-unquote, person. In fact, he was not a person.
It's interesting that they had that. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's interesting they used a hat from Peaky Blinders.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I'm going to start over here. The closer I got, the more I somehow knew that this was not a good quote-unquote person. In fact, he was not a person at all, but something pretending to be one, and the wheelchair was only a guise for him to seem like he was not of any threat. Don't ask me how I knew all this. It's just dream logic, I guess. I said to my husband as we came up beside him, almost passing the entrance to the gate, "Don't look at him, don't talk to him." For whatever reason, I looked at his face then, and he started to change. I can't really describe what he became, but as it grew and morphed, I could sense his anger fuming as he became this distorted, towering thing. We quickly rushed past him and into the house. He had disappeared. When I got into the house, nothing was right. It was abandoned and dilapidated, save for a worn kitchen table with 3 little girls, all in the same onesie. I could see 2 were twins, and 1 slightly older. Now Charlotte only has 1 son and a toddler girl, and I have never babysat for her or met her children. I told Anna about the dream a few days later. I always tell people my dreams. I think they're entertaining and weird, and I'm sure anyone who has the misfortune of hearing about them probably just thinks the latter. She agreed it was a weird dream and said Charlotte had been talking about her son complaining of a ghost or something in his closet at night scaring him. She told Charlotte about my dream, and shortly after she reached out to me privately, and what she said sent shivers down my spine. Before her daughter was born, she had a miscarriage. Twins. And her son had been intermittently telling her about some ghost that came out of his closet at night with a weird hat on. She also said she had been extremely depressed and feeling very off lately. Charlotte asked if I ever had heard of the Hat Man, but I never had, and just as well with the hat in my dream wasn't the same type as the one her son described when he talked about the thing that was in his room at night. I told her all the details in my dream, and we ended our conversation agreeing it was very strange. I didn't talk to her again after that. Honestly, I had forgotten all about it since I was so busy with a toddler and would be giving birth soon. My pregnancy was hard, and postpartum was harder. I immediately had severe PPD, postpartum depression, and honestly, my brain went to some scary places during that time. I'm really lucky to still be here now, writing this. One day, a few months after I had my second daughter, I laid down on the couch to, quote, sleep while the baby sleeps. I was in some weird half-dream, half-awake state when I heard and felt someone come to the edge of the couch, standing behind where my head was. I got the feeling it was a man, and he was frightened. Just as fast as he appeared, he disappeared, and something, was left standing behind him. The sense of dread I felt through my entire body was so intense. I felt heat burning through my body just before I jerked awake. As I opened my eyes, jolted upright, and turned to face what was behind me, I caught a strange glimpse. It was something like a fleeting shadow, just a black outline shadow type thing. A tall man wearing a wide brim hat. Then in a blink, he vanished. What the hell did I just see? What the hell just happened? I don't even know why I said anything. It just came out of me. Why? And in a quiet, retreating voice that was not my own, but unmistakably a man's, I hear,
"Because you invited me in."
After the initial shock and questioning my sanity, I realized that whatever that thing was, it was the very same energy I felt from the man in a wheelchair in my dream months before. I'm not one to believe in shit like this, and quite honestly, it was the last thing I was thinking about since I was so busy and tired from the C-section adjusting to a new baby. I Googled the description of what I saw and scrolled through images. There it was. The dark silhouette wearing the same hat with the caption, "The Hat Man." I read so many articles trying to piece together this strange experience that made no logical sense. That's the end of the story. That one, I actually got goosebumps reading this.
She invited him in?
That's what he said. That was what the voice said. This is after she's awake. He said that. "Because you invited me in."
I don't recall her ever saying that in her story, but that's pretty crazy. Do you think it was like something to do with the postpartum? That maybe she sort of had that longing that drew him in? And also the "please let me in," and then you look at their face and something warps to where you suddenly feel shrill terror. That reminds me of Black Eyed Children, and that might be an interesting episode later. Mm-hmm. Especially when they talk about their parents.
I'm kind of rereading it a little bit. So I am wondering if the fact that she dreamt about him and then talked about him and then talked to Charlotte's son about his entity, in some ways, that's all the invitation that's needed. She didn't explicitly say, "This thing's not wanted here."
Instead, she wanted more information.
She wanted more information. She was looking into it. She was talking about it. And sometimes that's all some of these things need. She never explicitly said, "You're not welcome here." And you do kind of have to be very technical and like very, very clear with your boundaries around spirits sometimes. I do think it's interesting that in the dream, when she went into the house, it was this dilapidated place with 3 children. There were 3 children around the table. The twins that her friend had miscarried, and then another little girl. I wonder about the other little girl. I wonder about the dilapidated state of the home. And I wonder about the fact that the Hat Man was sitting outside the home and couldn't come in. You know, I know that she was frightened of the Hat Man. She didn't want anything to do with him in the original dream and said, "Don't speak to him, don't look at him." Because she felt like he was a lot more than what he was letting on. But he wanted in the house. I wonder if on some level, he wanted to collect those two souls and couldn't because of the third. Maybe the third was something else, because we don't know what that third child was. We just know that there was a slightly older third child who was in that dream and was sitting with the twins. I don't know. And to answer your earlier question, yes, I do think postpartum depression opens up all kinds of mental doorways to be able to see things. After my son was born, I saw all kinds of crap in the house we lived in Chandler. I saw all kinds of things. And I some of it was stuff that to this day I still think about every single day. And I do think that there's just so much change, so much transition, so much trauma to the body. There's so much lack of sleep. I just think that you are, as a woman, you're just in a completely, totally altered state, both physically and mentally, that it makes it easier to see things. And I think that this is an incredible story. I personally like the Hat Man. I like the Baron. But I also come back to the fact that I have also decided that not every being that wears a hat is the Hat Man, is the Baron. And we know that children are safe with the Baron, right? And what was he doing there? Was he there protecting the kids? Was he there checking her out? Like, what was this being doing there? She never felt like there was a threat to her child.
This was a different kind of hat too.
Yeah.
Like it was. And what was the thing that was behind the man?
Well, the thing behind the man was
she said that there was the Hat Man.
No, there was a...
No, she said that there was the man.
There was a man,
and then there was...
Hold on. We're going to reread this. Hold on. So she says, I was in some weird half dream, half awake when I heard and felt someone come to the edge of the couch, standing behind where my head was. I got the feeling it was a man, and he was frightened. Just as fast as he appeared, he disappeared, and someone or something was standing behind him. And then that's when she freaked out and jerked awake. And as she was waking up, that's when she saw the glimpse of the shadow being wearing a hat. And then she said out loud, "Why?" And in a quiet voice, the shadow person wearing the hat said, "Because you invited me in." Maybe it's possible that the man that was frightened was there to do some mischief, and the Hat Man was sending it away, and that's why that man was scared, because the Hat Man moved him away. Like, who knows? I don't know. I am a little bit determined to see the Hat Man in a good light. I see that about myself. I think that she was afraid, but maybe she was afraid of the wrong being. I don't know, but that is crazy. And so it does raise what is the Hat Man? Who is? It does come back to that earlier speculation you had that the Hat Man and Maman Brigitte are somehow Lilin, are somehow tied to Lilith. Maybe, I don't know, but this does kind of, if we think about the Hat Man and Baon Samedi as these creatures that exist in this sort of in-between realm and can visit us, then they fall in that category of the jinn, of the Shedem, of these creatures that are human-like but are not human. I don't know. That's really interesting to think about. Did you have any more thoughts about this?
No.
Yeah.
I think it's such a deep rabbit hole. I don't know where we would go with this. Like, we could keep going up into this, and that really does make me want to look into the Black-Eyed Children.
Yeah. Man, the Black-Eyed Children is a really weird
Who are they?
Phenomenon. Yeah, who are they?
And who are their parents?
Yeah.
There's a few stories that they reference. I'm waiting for my parents. And there's one story where the parents do show up.
And then what? Don't leave me hanging. What? What happens when their parents show up?
The husband got cancer. The wife was deathly ill. They lost their kids. And the people that were closest to the black-eyed children for the longest are the ones that were worse off. So the kids were sitting next to the black-eyed kids, because they weren't afraid of them. And the father, the dad, actually kind of like touched one of them and brought them in, who are these children outside. And the wife actually kept her distance. So she just got really sick.
Wow.
And the whole time she was the only one that seemed to feel that horrible vibration that we talk about that also happens in night terrors.
Mm-hmm.
She mentions a horrible vibration that seemed to be emanating directly from him, which responded, that felt like pure terror, is what she said. But she seemed to be the only one that noticed it.
Mm-hmm. That would be a fun one. That would be a really fun episode to look at the black-eyed children. Because if you think about it, I feel like what we've established, or at least what I've established for myself, is that the lore says, this 5,000-year-old lore says that all demons, all shadow creatures, all of these beings that are like human but are not human come from Lilith and are the children of Lilith. And so in some ways they are all related. And we are related to them, if you think about it, in some ways.
They're basically just another form of human, what we could have been.
What we could have been if she was the mother of humanity instead of Eve, perhaps. That's weird to think about, too. What would have happened if Adam had been willing to see Lilith as his equal and meet her as an equal instead of expecting her to be subservient and trying to force her? What would humanity be now if that had gone differently?
We would have been like the elf people of the dot hack world.
Yeah.
Basically, they were superior in technology and magic. So much so that they rivaled the god that created them. And they built a metaphorical stairway to heaven which scared the god that created them and knocked them all down and turned them into beast people.
Oh, well, that sounds a lot like the Tower of Babylon. Yeah.
And so the elves are all now extinct, but their ruins remain. And so now you have normal humans and beast people.
So wait, where is this? Dark?
And that was a video game.
Oh, that's a video game. Oh, okay.
Where they talk about it's dot hack, and it's the lore of this video game within the video game.
Interesting. I was excited for a minute.
I think that would have been closer to what we would have been like.
Yeah.
We would have had superior magical power and technological, and we would have eventually our ambitions would have gotten the better of us. They do anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to a lot of the lore and things I was reading, there has been a decent amount of interbreeding between the children of Adam and Eve and the children of Lilith. So some human beings, possibly possess some of the qualities of, maybe that explains why there are some people who are a little bit more. There are some magicians out there. There are some people who can do things that seem impossible. I don't know. Okay, so I have one more story that is it's another kind of shadow person story. This is from the same Reddit thread, and it's by a person named Mecha Otaku. MECHAOTAKU.
So
when I was 20.
Machine nerd?
I don't know. What does that mean to you?
Mecha otaku. Otaku is basically a nerd or somebody who's obsessive with like anime or video games.
Aww.
And mecha is...
That's cute. I didn't know that.
Mechanical.
Oh. Otaku, is that Japanese?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. Well, anyway, here's the story. When I was 20, I moved into a house with my then girlfriend. It was a 3-bedroom rental in a decent part of town and really, really cheap. The only downside was the landlord didn't live in my state and didn't speak English, so repairs took time. Thanks to a series of events involving my girlfriend's job making her come into work and her brother being a flake, I ended up moving in everything by myself. 10 minutes into the move, I had the first encounter. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a black dog looking up the stairs and at me. I thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion, but then my dog, a large German Shepherd mix, who was upstairs with me, walked over to the stairs and started growling, looking straight at it. The dog casually walked away. I ran downstairs and looked everywhere, but couldn't find it. We both saw the dog a few more times and had a few other weird sights, sounds, experiences in the house, but there was one that was beyond a doubt a paranormal experience. It was what caused us to move out. Our master bedroom was upstairs. It was a particularly hot summer, and the old AC wasn't cooling upstairs very efficiently, so we slept in a bedroom on the main level that I was using as my computer room, guest bedroom. This room always had a weird vibe to it, and we had noticed that our dog, who typically followed us everywhere, would not go in. Instead, he would lay down in front of the doorway and wait for us. He was a little strange at times, so we wrote it off as that. At some point in the middle of the night, I woke up being violently shaken. As I came to, I could feel a hand firmly holding my arm and shaking me back and forth. Thinking the house was on fire and my girlfriend was trying to wake me, I jumped up and turned around to get out of bed. That put me face to face with what a lot of people would call a shadow person. It was a black mass, vaguely in the shape of a human, but by the light of the streetlight outside of the window, I could clearly see it. I could feel freezing cold air pouring off of it. Thinking I was dreaming and my girlfriend was still trying to wake me, I turned around only to see her still in the bed, still sound asleep. I turned back around and the shadow was still there. Now wide awake and full of adrenaline, I withdrew back away from it. After having sufficiently scared the bejesus out of me, the shadow slowly turned away from me, lumbering towards my door and out into the hallway. My dog, who was sleeping in the hall, woke up and skittered backwards into the bedroom toward me, terrified. I sat on the bed and collected myself before jumping back out of the bed and going to the hall. I turned the light on, and of course, it was gone. I didn't wake my girlfriend up, but I also didn't sleep until the sun came back up. I told my girlfriend about it the next day. We called the landlord and told her that we were moving out. I told her the house was haunted and we were not staying after the current month. She seemed to understand and didn't protest it at all. That's the end of the story. I think the most condemning part of the story...
So she saw something too, probably.
Yes, was that the landlord didn't even argue. Oh, you're moving out? Okay. Like, that tells me everything. that was not the first time. That was crazy. And another shadow person, another really violent shadow person. And the dog skittering out of the hallway as it walked past it, that's insane. That's a great story.
Well, did you want to wrap it up here?
I know that this episode was a little bit of a mess. Murderers, I know it was a little bit of a mess, but Cameron was moving and I started a second job. But we will get our crap together, and next episode will be less disorganized, I think.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Did you think it was disorganized?
I think we stayed on point pretty good.
Okay, good.
I think the only thing that was disorganized was our pacing a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah.
But next time we'll be better.
We'll
prepare.
I need to keep my notes in better order next time. I've done better. And this time I didn't have enough time.
All right. See you next time, murderers.
Okay. Goodbye, murderers. And
see you next week.
Thank you for joining us at
The Wandering Crow.
Tonight, on a cold night.